In today's video, I want to explain why randonneurs should choose a fast bike for randonneuring. Randonneuring is an ultra-endurance athletic event, and despite its casual appearance, it's incredibly grueling and very demanding. Still, many randonneurs choose a slow bike to try to complete these events. In this video today, I want to share 3 reasons why choosing a fast bike is the best choice for randonneurs, the 4 characteristics that make a bike fast, and then apply those characteristics to a simulated brevet course to see how big of an effect that having a fast bike can make compared to a slow bike. The first benefit of a fast bike is it allows a rider to use less energy to go the same speed. This might happen if you're riding with a group or if you're just targeting a finishing time. By being more efficient, a fast bike requires a rider to use less energy. That means to ingest less calories. This means that your fueling strategy has more flexibility for mistakes and that overall you'll be more likely to fuel properly if you're riding a fast bike, just by the fact that you're using less energy. For example, a rider with a 25% gross metabolic efficiency might save 36 calories of needed fuel for each 10 watts of effort saved per hour of pedaling. Not only that, the fuel that your body uses when you're at lower intensities is a more sustainable form of fuel. As shown by Hargreaves and Spriet, low and mid-intensity exercise use a higher rate of fat, shown here as FFAs and triglycerides, than carbohydrates, shown as plasma glucose and muscle glycogen, compared to high-intensity exercise. Riding at a high intensity will induce core muscle fatigue, which is a result of calf and hamstring muscle fatigue. Core muscle fatigue is linked to poor cycling mechanics, which may lead to increased injury risk. Lower intensity and lower perceived exertion will also reduce mental fatigue over long rides. Mental fatigue is associated with poor endurance performance, like less time to exhaustion and a lower self-selected power. Reduced mental fatigue can also lead to better decision making, which is a skill that suffers under the demands of randonneuring. A randonneur may prefer to maintain their power output and just go faster by having a fast bike. Brevets of 400 kilometers or more are going to require some sleep or strategic napping to complete safely. By riding a faster bike, a randonneur will be able to bank time for sleep in these conditions. Of course, using efficient strategies like shorter rest stops and eating on the bike can save the most time. But a fast bike can still save very significant time for each 100 kilometers ridden. Randonneurs can also avoid riding through the night and prioritize riding mostly in daytime with the help of a fast bike. For me, avoiding the sleep monster and an overdependence on stimulants for these longer brevets was one of the most important factors for me when searching for speed and efficiency in my riding style. Sleep deprivation has been shown to have a similar effect on driving as alcohol. So similar effects can be expected for cyclists riding deep into the night as well. As peaceful and nice as riding in the night can feel sometimes, getting adequate sleep is important for your safety and the safety of those around you. So riding a fast bike, which will allow you more time to bank for sleep, is not just a better feeling experience, but also a safer one. Unplanned delays are a major part of the randonneuring experience. Things like having mechanical problems and flat tires, taking a wrong turn, having an upset stomach, delays because of weather, and even the occasional crash will all put a damper on your ability to succeed at randonneuring. By riding a fast bike and enjoying the time it can save, a fast bike can serve as a buffer for these kinds of events to ensure you have success. A third benefit to riding a faster bike is that you can avoid power surges. Power surges are areas of a ride where you give more power than you would consider acceptable with your pacing strategy. Now, a pacing strategy I would recommend for a randonneur would be to use mostly even power over the entire course of the brevet. There would be some small variations like coasting on down hills to save energy, and when riding through urban areas and towns with lots of traffic and stoplights, to use a little bit less power because of all the stopping and going, which would make for a more efficient use of energy. Of course, having slightly higher power on climbs is also the most effective way to save time, but you don't want to go too much higher than your baseline power on climbs because it can put you into the red. A key to succeeding with your pacing strategy, though, is to avoid these power surges. As your power ramps up to the higher levels of your capacity, the body responds differently than it does from endurance level effort. The body takes on a lot more stress. Many high-intensity segments during a brevet may cause fatigue reactions in any or all of the fatiguing factors, as outlined by Aziz and Larson. High levels of fatigue are difficult to recover from when you still have several hundred kilometers left to ride. I can't count the number of times where, at the beginning of a long ride, I stormed up a steep hill with confidence, only to burn some matches and acquire lower back soreness, which would follow me for the rest of the ride. Power surges often occur when conditions get tough. Running out of gears and struggling to stay upright on steep climbs requires more power than is sustainable and breaks a good pacing strategy. For example, I recently had multiple climbs on a long ride where I needed 250 or 300 watts or more to keep a usable cadence, even though my gearing is lower than what comes with most endurance bikes. Lightweight equipment can help reduce the extent of the strain in these inevitable conditions of power surge. Strong headwinds can also make progress slow to a crawl. In these conditions, riders will often give a surge of power to try to approach their desired pace. My recommended pacing strategy would advise against extra effort in headwinds. That's because the effect of headwinds on required effort is exponential as speeds increase. This makes using extra energy in these conditions inefficient. Instead, focus on maintaining an aerodynamic position by equipping and using aero bars when it's safely possible to do so. Social riding draws many people to randonneuring, but it's also the source of many power surges. Keeping pace with stronger riders, trying to catch a peloton that's zoomed up the road, or riding with other riders who pace poorly can have a big negative impact on your pacing strategy. But the 4 different factors that make a bike fast can help reduce the impact of power surges caused by social cycling situations. So, what are these 4 characteristics that make a bike fast? Well, the first is rolling resistance of the tires. The second is the aerodynamics of the bike and the storage systems that you use. The third is the weight of the bike. And the fourth is the drivetrain efficiency. So, rolling resistance is the drag caused by the tire. It increases linearly with speed and is measured by a metric called CRR, the coefficient of rolling resistance. Rolling resistance is a high percentage of total resistance at slower speeds, but it's important at all speeds and in all conditions that a randonneur will face. A specific tire's rolling resistance varies depending on a wide range of conditions, like the rim width, the air pressure, the weight of the system, which includes the bike, the luggage, and the rider, and perhaps most from road roughness. Lab measurements of CRR of road tires with a suitable thickness, suitable rubber thickness for long distance riding, range from figures of about 0.003 for a fast tire, up to about 0.006 for a slow road tire that's focused more on durability. Touring and all-road tires that some randonneurs prefer are even slower. These have CRRs between 0.005 and 0.008, sometimes much more. This means that a rider on a slow road tire will need double the power to overcome rolling resistance at the same speed as the rider on a fast tire. The need for speed is balanced by the need to account for road conditions. Your chosen tire should be run at a pressure low enough to avoid being overwhelmed by road roughness, resulting in a big spike in CRR, as shown by the people over at Silca. The actual resistance that you will experience from your tires is going to vary from what's reported in the lab test. For average speeds of 20 to 25 kilometers per hour that a randonneur will often be riding at, they can expect to save 15 to 20 watts on average by changing from a slow to a fast rolling tire. When looking at the second chart that shows the speed at different power outputs, you'll notice that no matter the power output on a flat course, the faster tire is going to give about a 2 kilometer per hour advantage compared to the slower tire. Aerodynamics has an exponential relationship with speed. That means that as speed increases, the rate of aerodynamic resistance increases too. This makes marketing materials for aerodynamic products tested at high speeds more attractive. A randonneur will not travel at these speeds often, but we will often ride into a headwind. That means our net headwind, the riding speed plus our headwind speed, will approach these high numbers that we see in the marketing pretty regularly. Thus, aerodynamics is very important to a randonneur. It's measured by CDA, or the coefficient of drag, which is roughly the efficiency of your shape, times the frontal area, which is the size of you and your bike. Watts saved claims by marketing and media are derived from improvements in tested CDA, which are then calculated into watts saved at different speeds compared to a control. Comparing forms of aero testing available to normal people will be covered in a future video. But for now, generalized measurements by riding position are useful for illustration, even if they're going to vary greatly from your actual CDA in these positions. Typical measures of a bike and rider are reported as having a CDA of 0.4 for an upright position like the tops of a road bike or the hood's position on a touring bike, 0.32 on the hoods of a road bike, 0.3 in the drops, and 0.28 or potentially much less using aero bars are also well reported and can be used as a baseline.
Bike and wheel choices may represent an improvement of 0.028 CDA between high-end road bikes, according to independent testing by Tour magazine. Up to 0.008 CDA improvement is attributed to the wheels in this test, although other tests show up to a 0.018 improvement just from wheel choice. The bike itself accounts for up to 0.022 improvement when the wheels are normalized. There are, of course, wide variations in aerodynamic performance across bike frames and wheel set and tire combinations. Dozens of other variables like clothing and accessories beg for aero tuning, but that will be explored later. Let's look at the resistance in watts different CDAs give at different speeds. We can see reducing drag can save significant watts even at a modest 25 km per hour net headwind. Most drag comes from the rider's position, so adopting aero bars might save 10 to 30 watts or gain 1 to 3 kilometers per hour when you can use them. Meanwhile, 10 watts or 1 kilometer per hour can be expected from an aero bike with mid-depth carbon wheels. When net headwinds increase, like on mild downhills or in headwinds, massive effort can be saved with aero bars, bike choice, and carbon wheels. Streamlined storage solutions will allow these gains to be realized.
Rolling resistance and aerodynamics are difficult to measure and also difficult for a rider to perceive differences. One thing that's very easy to perceive a difference, though, is weight. You can pick up your bike and feel how much it weighs. And weight is an important factor in having a fast bike. But the importance comes only when you're climbing.
On a steep climb like 9%, A 100-kilogram bike plus rider has run out of gears and is struggling to keep their cadence above 70 RPM. They do this by pushing nearly 240 watts. Assuming, though, that they've equipped very low gears, a more manageable 180 watts can be chosen. No matter the gearing, each lost kilogram of weight reduces needed power by 1%, either 2.4 or 1.8 watts for this rider.
Efficiency savings derived from lower equipment weight might seem unimportant, as the total percentage of weight that comes from the bike is pretty low compared to the rider. These are also expensive to make, and they only apply when you're climbing. Saving weight doesn't really matter on the flats. However, a randonneur who chose a touring bike might be able to save 5 kilograms or more by moving to a road bike and making efficient decisions on what to bring along and how to pack. Since steep hills are the #1 area for power surges, being mindful of bike weight can have a greater impact than the numbers might suggest. Losses in drivetrain efficiency are the fourth characteristic of a fast bike. These losses are usually measured as a percentage of power produced by the rider. This is not affected by wind conditions or speed. This is purely reflected in power. So, as such, this measurement is important at all stages of a brevet. Independent testing is performed at 250 watts, but the results of lost power from these tests should be reduced to account for Randonneur's lower power output. A rather dirty chain might cost a Randonneur 4 to 5 watts more than a clean chain, while an old chain nearing the end of its life will cost another 3 to 4 watts over a newer, well-maintained chain. Chain rings and cassettes with life still left in them will help keep things running smoothly. Also, carry a small dropper of chain lube with you during your brevet and apply some chain lube every 200 to 300 kilometers in dry conditions or after every little bit of rain that you experience to keep your drivetrain running efficiently. Other elements of drivetrain efficiency like cog size, bearing efficiency, and the results of chain deflection can all add losses to your drivetrain. That said, I don't really recommend optimizing your equipment choices in pursuit of drivetrain efficiency. Instead, focus on just keeping your drivetrain well maintained and in good working order, and that will help the most with riding efficiency. So then, let's take all this information and put it together into a simulated brevet course. Adapting and simplifying the work by Chris White from the excellent website ridefar.info, we can estimate the effects of a fast bike for each 100 kilometers of brevet riding. On the website, Chris used the 2015 transcontinental race route, which has a similar average elevation profile to many local brevets, and it makes it a suitable proxy for this exercise.
This simulated brevet course has no wind or road roughness considerations, or the impact of power surges or drafting considered. The outcome for all riders is optimistic and is intended for illustration. Our slow bike rider has tires with a CRR of 0.06, a system weight of 100 kilograms, a CDA 0.05 higher than the fast bikes, and a dirty, worn drivetrain with 95% efficiency. Two fast bike riders focusing on matching the power or speed of the slow bike will have tires with a CRR of 0.03, a system weight of 95 kilograms, a CDA matching previous estimates, and access to aero bars with a 98% efficient drivetrain.
So here are the results of the simulation. On the left, we can see the different conditions that the riders will face and their choices of riding position. You'll notice that fast bikes have options for aero bar use on shallow climbs and on the flats. We can see the condition descriptions by their gradient, which is the percentage of rise in the hill, and the estimated kilometers per 100 kilometers of riding representing these conditions. Our 3 different riders have their wattage, speed, and time spent each listed for each condition. From the results, we can see that the fast bike can save about 40 minutes of riding time per 100 kilometers compared to a slow bike. Fewer rest stops would likely be needed too, meaning that for a 300k brevet, the estimated 2 hours saved would probably be a conservative estimate. When keeping speed constant, the fast bike requires about 36 watts of less effort, which also results in about 550 fewer calories needed per 100 kilometers ridden. This would lessen physical and mental fatigue and give a buffer to imperfect fueling. I hope this video was helpful building understanding that fast bikes are not just for pro racers. They're for randonneurs too. But that doesn't mean that you need to go out and buy a new bike. In the next video, we'll take a look at how we can apply these concepts to a slow bike to make it fast. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.